How much evidence is there of the poop narrative? Well, let's take a look.
One of the former housekeepers, as we mentioned, had talked about him smearing feces on a bathroom wall.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. So Kolar is fairly vague here. He doesn't identify which housekeeper, and he doesn't really mention who him is. You can imagine who that is by inference, but we need to be clear. And then there's also this inference, which seems to be from the same source, which is Linda Hoffman Pugh, the Ramsey's housekeeper, recalled once finding fecal material the size of a grapefruit on the sheets. And that is from Steve Thomas, another investigator, from his book JonBenet Inside the Ramsey Murder Investigation, page 35. So when Kolar is referring to a former housekeeper mentioned him smearing feces on the bathroom wall, is it from the same housekeeper? Is it Linda Hoffman Pugh? What do you think the answer is to that?
And there was a softball-sized ball of feces found in JonBenet's bed.
Now, in terms of this grapefruit-sized ball, there's also this reference from the same source from the same book. Hoffman Pugh arrived for work, she said. Patsy already had the bed stripped and the sheets going in the washing machine. She told police that the problem also extended to JonBenet soiling the bed, and recalled once finding fecal material the size of a grapefruit on the sheets. Now, if you read between the lines, that seems to be suggesting that JonBenet was soiling the bed, A, and B, that the fecal material that was the size of a grapefruit was JonBenet's. I mean, that is a question. Whose fecal material was that grapefruit-sized ball? Now, not to play devil's advocate, but both Steve Thomas and Kolar seem to be using the same source, the Ramsey housekeeper. Any good journalist will tell you you need at least two sources for information to be deemed even slightly credible. So, is there another source? Because you might say Linda Hoffman Pugh might have a bone to pick with the Ramsey. She wants to embarrass them. Is this account from her reliable? Well, if we do a little checking, we actually do have two sources already, because Kolar's source, get this, is a different housekeeper. And now we're going to Foreign Faction, where he writes, I had reviewed an investigator's report that documented a 1997 interview with former Ramsey nanny housekeeper Geraldine Vodica. She's another peripheral figure, and she stated that Burke had smeared feces on the walls of a bathroom during his mother's first bout with cancer, and that's in 1993. She told investigators that Nedra Paul, who was visiting the Ramsey home at the time, had directed her to clean up the mess. I think that's also interesting, that this happened when Nedra Paul was in the house. I also think what's interesting is that contextually, there's a link between this and the cancer narrative. And so the fecal narrative gets additional reinforcement via this photo and via Haney and Patsy accepting that the blue PJs on the floor in JonBenet's bathroom, as seen in crime scene photos, had feces in them. When Haney asks Patsy about them and mentions the feces, Patsy doesn't deny it. Patsy acknowledges it. This is important to get the Ramsey's say on this sort of delicate and sensitive issue. Now, what I find a little bit problematic is that Patsy identifies what you see there on the floor as pants belonging to JonBenet. Tom Haney then shows Patsy a close-up photo of these pants and says they're stained, and Patsy says basically that JonBenet was at the age where she was learning to wipe herself, and sometimes she wouldn't do such a great job, and that would probably be more from just not wiping real well. Now, on the one hand, this is an item of clothing in JonBenet's bathroom, so you would immediately assume it's JonBenet's. But there's various reports saying, first of all, it was too big to be JonBenet's clothing, and secondly, it's blue. And so in my opinion, those PJs aren't JonBenet's. If they were pink, yes, but they're not. And so this raises quite an interesting question. If it is Burke's PJs? Why on earth is Patsy saying, no, it's actually JonBenet's? Why do that? Why say that?
And after they sealed off JonBenet's room, and the crime scene technicians went through it, they apparently found feces spread on a box of candy that she had gotten the day before for Christmas.
Now, if you add all of this together, it can't be more contrary to this image of JonBenet dancing on stage, her hair coiffed in this beautiful way, her makeup perfect, her outfits perfect as well. It can't be more contrary to this image we have of this beautiful little girl on stage. Back at the ranch, things are really not much of a fairy tale, are they? So how many sources do we have now? We've got the one housekeeper, we've got the other housekeeper, we've apparently got Patsy acknowledging fecal material in clothing in JonBenet's bathroom. We've got Haney mentioning it as well. That's 4. And then now there's a 5th source, or is that a 6th? Kolo mentioned someone in his book about CSIs finding a Christmas gift, candy apparently, smeared with feces in JonBenet's room. I really don't think she did that herself. Now, I don't know about you, but if someone did that to me, I don't know if I would want to eat those chocolates, and perhaps that's the point. Perhaps that is a sign of someone indicating feelings of animus towards someone else. Perhaps that reveals a sibling dynamic. Now, Kola, I think, believes that there's a link between the garment in the PJs, I guess, in the bathroom and the candy, and he could be right, but we don't know for sure. And that's why, when Burke says on Dr. Phil, is asked, is anything that you've not said? This is something we simply don't know. Who did that? And if it's not Burke, could it be someone else? The problem with this evidence is that although it's great that the CSI said they found something, unfortunately they never collected the feces-covered candy as evidence. And at the end of the day, this means the cops likely couldn't prove their case. I mean, if the Ramseys denied it, if Burke denied it, if Patsy testified and she denied it, if John denied it, if their doctor denied it, and if the cops said they saw something, whose statements would hold sway at the end of the day? And how much would the testimony of two housekeepers really matter in this case? And so at the end of the day, on the feces issue, we have to acknowledge.
I don't know. Just don't know.
I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.